Hello, today we are starting Unit 4, 4A, with Mission 1A, converting between fractions, decimals, and percents. Hopefully this is something that you've done in the past, so this is not all new information coming to you. It says, how do we move from a fraction to a decimal to a percent? So we're going to use the example 24% as we go through this problem. In a question, they'll often give you either a fraction, a decimal, or a percent and ask you to convert to one of the two or other pieces of information. So if we start with 24%, we need to convert that to a fraction and a decimal. Well, 24% is 24% out of a total of 100%. So to convert from a fraction or from a percent to a fraction, we're simply going to divide by 100. So that would give us 24% out of 100%. When we write it as a fraction, we just don't include the percentages. So 24 out of 100 is what I would put in that fraction box. However, we know how to simplify fractions. I'm going to divide by 2, which would give me 12 over 50. And I can divide by 2 again to simplify, which gives me 6 over 25. So in this box, I would write 6 divided by 25. So there's our most simplified fraction. And then from fraction to a decimal, to get to a decimal, if we have a fraction, all we are going to do is divide. Divide 6 divided by 25 using your calculator. Okay? Some of them you might already know, but this one, 6 divided by 25 in my calculator, is going to give me 0.24 as a decimal. So if I have a decimal, and let's say I want to go back to a percent, this is 0.24. To get to a percentage, we are going to multiply by 100. So this is 0.24 as a decimal, or 24 hundredths. So if we multiply by 100, we will get back to our percentage. So 0.24 times 100 gives me 24, or you're just moving your decimal 2 places to the right. 24%. So these things here, the first dividing by 100, then using your calculator to divide, will get you to a decimal, and then from a decimal to a percent, you're multiplying by 100. So let's look at a couple other examples. Write the percent as a fraction. So we're going to go to the fraction box first, then as a decimal. So 45% is 45% out of 100%, but we can simplify that. I know these are both multiples of 5. 45 divided by 5 is 9. 100 divided by 5 is 20, so it's 9/20. And then to get to a decimal, we are just going to plug that in my calculator, divide, which gives me 0.45. So that's our decimal. If we wanted to go back to the percentage, we would multiply by 100. But we have our fraction and our decimal. Those are our two answers. Next one, they give us 120%. This is more than 100%. This would be like if you did extra credit and went above and beyond and were able to get more than 100% on something. So this is still 120% out of 100% total. So 120 out of 100, I'm going to simplify this. I can divide by 10. 120 divided by 10 is 12. 100 divided by 10 is 10. These are both even numbers still, so I can divide by 2. 12 divided by 2 is 6. 10 divided by 2 is 5. So the simplest fraction that I could write would be 6 over 5. So that's one of my answers as a fraction, but I also need it as a decimal. So to get from a fraction to a decimal, you simply divide the fraction that you have. 6 divided by 5 gives me 1.2. There are my two answers. So now these are the same types of questions we're just starting at a different point. So instead of starting at the percent, we're starting with a decimal or a fraction. But we're going to ask that you write it as a percent. So to get from a fraction to a decimal, we're simply going to divide. 1 divided by 20 is, turn my calculator on. 1 divided by 20 gives me 0.05. And then to get up to the percent, we need to multiply by 100. So 0.05 times 100 would give me 5%. All I did was convert it to a decimal first. And then multiply by 100 to get to the percent. If you used your triangle here, we went from the fraction 1/20th, divided and got 0.05, and then multiplied by 100 to get 5%. So let's take a look at the next one. We are already at a percent, so to get from a percent, to get from a decimal to a percent, we're just multiplying by 100. So in our triangle thing here, we don't actually need the fraction box at all. We are already at the decimal, 0.9, and we just need to multiply by 100 to get to the percent. So 0.9 times 100 moves our decimal 2 spots and gives us 90%. Last one, we are starting as a fraction, so you can either just do what you know, converting a fraction to a decimal to a percent, or you can use your little triangles and boxes to help you go from one to the next. So 3/8, just divide. 3 divided by 8 gives me 0.375, and then times 100 to get to a decimal. Moving your decimal 2 spots, if you multiply by 100, 37.5%. If you don't use the triangle thing, just plug it in your calculator, 0.375, and then multiply by 100, moving your decimal 2 spots. Let's flip over to the back side. This one you need to make sure you're reading the directions. It says the survey. The circle graph below shows the results of a survey of how 500 students prefer to spend their time. So how do you prefer to spend your time? With family, watching TV, reading, with friends, or something else? They want to know what percent, so we're going to find the percent, what percent of students prefer to spend time with their friends. So with friends, that's right here, that's 40 students. Well, that doesn't give us a percent, a fraction, or a decimal. But we can actually write a fraction because we know it's 40 students out of a total of, this is our part to total. Our part we're looking at is 40 friends out of a total of 500. So that's a fraction we're going to use. We could simplify this to write it in its simplest form. I'm going to divide by 10. 500 divided by 10 is 50. We're just getting rid of a 0. And then we can also divide by 2. That gives us 2 over 25. So there's my fraction. When I plug that in my calculator to divide, I get 0.08 as a decimal. And then I need to multiply by 100 to get to my percent. Or we're moving our decimal 2 spots, which would give me 8%. So our answer, 8% of students prefer to spend time with friends. All right, last question. It says, you go to Foot Locker to buy a new pair of shoes. They have a sale going on where you get $10 off your total price. You spend $75. What is the discount you got as a percentage? So we got $10 off. So as a fraction, we got $10 out of a total of $75 off. So we want to know what is that as a percentage. Right now we have it written as a fraction. So I'm going to actually simplify this. These are both multiples of 5. 10 divided by 5 is 2. 75 divided by 5 is 15. I plugged that in my calculator. 75 divided by 5. So the reason why I wrote $10 on the top is because it was $10 of your total. So this was our discount out of the total, because we want the discount as a percentage. We don't really care about the total price apparently. So we have it as a fraction. Now we just need to divide to get that as a decimal. 2 divided by 15 is 0.1333333 repeating. So this decimal goes on and on and on. There's lots of 3's. So when we multiply by 100 to get to our percentage, we're moving our decimal 2 times to multiply by 100. So we get 13.333333 repeating. So we got 13.3, I'm just going to leave it as 13.3% off. That was our discount. So all we did was convert that from a fraction to a decimal, and then lastly to our percent. So what is the discount you got as a percentage? We got 13% off with that $10. Alright, there is one similar to that on your homework, which is why I chose to do that right now. So go ahead and get started. We have your questions here. I drew out the triangle for you so you can go from a percent to a fraction to a decimal.